the search term like women's pink rubber coated insulated water bottle. Like that's my exact product. Now, the more specific you get to the product, the more specific the search is, the lower your search volume is going to be. So what we always look to do on product launches is like we try and find the intersection between good search volume and good to us is like maybe even a couple thousand, depending on the budget, that also have really good relevancy to the product. Because what you're trying to do is you want to get in front of your exact shoppers. So example would be insulated water bottle is going to be really expensive and not super specific to my product. Like it's kind of specific, but not really specific. I'm trying to say like, okay, where can I start getting super specific to my product, but it's going to have enough search volume that I can get the sales volume that I need. So I would focus more on that versus that I would looking at only search volume. A bit of a technical answer here is we don't quote move them, meaning we're not going to pause the existing keywords. We're simply going to launch them in another match type. Again, make sure to keep the bids lower. Amazon actually, if you read their recommendations, they recommend keeping bids lower on broad and phrase match, even lower than the exact match. When we would launch those is honestly really dependent on performance of the account and availability of the budget. So if you launch a keyword in exact phrase and broad, so you have 50 keywords, right? And you launch them in exact phrase and broad, you technically have, 150 keywords that you've launched. And the potential of broad and phrase to spend could be quite high. So again, you just want to make sure it makes sense. It seems super simplistic, but if you are in a phase where you're struggling to control total ACoS and ACoS, to fix those two numbers, it really means that you have to lower down your ad spend with ideally little to no impact of the total sales or the ad sales in the case of ACoS. If you introduce a whole, again, those 50 keywords in exact phrase and broad, and those you probably need to test and optimize the bids, etc., you're introducing a lot of additional ad spend into the account. So you do want to be aware of that and be careful with that. So that's kind of a benchmark that we use. But overall, I would say, I don't know if I would have like a certain time frame or a frame which I would hold back on. It really is dependent on the performance of the account. Another good question, which best bid strategy for phrase and exacts when you move? So again, we don't really move them. We would simply launch them in addition. We like to separate them by campaign as well. I think it gives us a little bit more control over, say, budgets for things. Now, as far as the bidding strategy, we're a super huge fan of using mainly dynamic down only. If it is a keyword that we want to ensure that we get impressions for, so for our launch keywords, for our main keywords, for anything we're trying to be aggressive with, we prefer a fixed bidding strategy. It's still going to be the same. It's still going to be pick highly relevant keywords. One other tip is pick keywords that fit within the budget of the account that you're launching. So for instance, if I have a couple $100 a day budget versus $50 a day budget, those launches are actually going to look a little bit different because I can't afford that many clicks on a $50 a day budget. Or if I had, a couple $100 or $1,000, I have a lot more room for clicks. So actually, you want budgets to play into your launch strategy. The other thing that you want to keep in mind, do not expect profitability on launch. This is a huge one. There's a lot of people that try and pull back and knee-jerk for profitability right out of the gate. That is not going to happen. The reason why it's not going to happen, and I'll tell you the numbers behind the numbers, is that ACoS is just going to be high on your product launches, and that is a function of two things. One, the aggressive cost per click you have to set to be able to get visibility in the beginning, and two, how low your product conversion rate is going to be, especially if you're launching without reviews. Those two things, once you start to be able to bring your cost per clicks down because you gain momentum or you're optimizing your bids, and then two, once your product conversion rate starts to increase because you're getting those reviews, maybe you're optimizing your listing a little bit more because you've learned more about your target market, that is going to help bring down your target ACoS. So those things, again, conversion rates are going to be low, high cost per click. That's actually like the nuts and bolts of why your ads are not profitable, and it's almost unreasonable to expect profitability in the beginning. And that's actually why, if you've ever had a product where you're like, no matter what I do, I cannot seem to bring the ACoS down, I'm struggling here, it's a function of that your conversion rate is remaining low and it's not improving, and your cost per clicks are remaining high and you're not able to improve them due to the market or something else. So again, I would still say pick highly relevant keywords, Also, make sure that whatever keywords that you have fits within your budget. Launch them. Aggressive, sponsored product, exact match, potentially sponsored brand video, exact match if you have the creative. Double down on that for a couple weeks and then start expanding from there. And hello. Welcome back to another segment of Ask Junglr. So this is the place where you can come every single week. We did change it from Thursday to Friday because we had a conflict. But typically speaking, we're here on Thursdays from 12 to 1, so for an hour. So we're going to do the exact same time today, 12 to 1, providing that I hold out. So woke up this morning, back to back all day, and just so happened I caught whatever my kids have. So fun times from times. But yeah, so everything says excited for today's session, looking forward to it, looking forward as well. Always enjoy the questions you ask. Always been appreciative of people who show up here every single week looking to learn, because that's why we do it. So by the way, if you're wondering like, hey, why are you talking about Amazon ads? Why should I be listening to you? So hey, if you don't know who I am, my name is Elizabeth Greene, and I have been running an Amazon ad agency for going on 6 years. We pretty much have done it all, seen it all. I like to say if you have any strong opinions, which if you listen to me for any length of time, my answer is normally it depends. So I tried to give a lot of context in my answers, but I do have some very strong points of view on Amazon advertising. Whenever an ad manager has a very strong point of view, it's because they have battle scars. There are things that we have done. There are things that we have seen, especially over 6 years. But gosh, it seems like things have just ramped up considerably. Profits are very much in the discussion right now, especially because we typically work with larger private label sellers. If you're a private label seller, if you are a homegrown brand, that means you are growing off of your own cash flow. Cash flow, bottom line profits are crazy important. So obviously we need to be able to scale, because the whole, if you're not growing, you're dying. You don't want to continue to just like hold on to what you have and never have any growth mindset. Honestly, those are the brands that have a very slow, painful death. Are the ones that are only focusing on the short term. They're only worried about what's happening today. There's no long-term perspective. It's all, what can I happen right now? Forget the long-term ramifications. That's where you can lead to some really painful things happening from that. But if you go in the opposite direction, if you're full on growth all the time, I'm not worried about profitability, we'll make up for it later. Those are the ones that go out in a blaze of glory. About, depending on what your run rate looks like, you might wake up 3 months from now, you might wake up a year from now realizing like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go out of business. So we don't want to die a slow death. We don't want to go out in a blaze of glory. We want good, sustainable, profitable growth. And that's what we help brands achieve. So again, ads are oftentimes on the chopping block when there's a lot of things that are completely out of our control, because advertising spend, while it does play into long-term growth strategies, and there's definitely ways that you need to navigate that, and you're up against market trends. So there is like only so much that you can play in. That being said, we really need to understand that advertising is the one piece that we do have a lot more control over than other things. Like if tariffs become a thing and we're importing from China, or when Amazon raises storage fees, or when Amazon adds in new inventory fees, all of these things, they affect our bottom line, but in a lot of ways they're out of our control. Where if you know how to run your Amazon advertising, and again, those things are affecting bottom line, those things are affecting profits, advertising strategy needs to be adjusted to meet the current market demand. And so with that, that's what we talk about this. So I really appreciate it. So the format for this is definitely going to be, you all can ask your Amazon ad questions. So drop a comment into the chat, ask your questions, pull it up on screen, and I will do my very best to give you the most specific answer I possibly can for your unique situations. The more context you add to your question, the better. And with that, we're already seeing some comments rolling in. So let's pull them up. FYI, I did see a couple comments on like catalog management and things. Yeah, so somebody was asking like, hey, Notice the Live is now on Fridays. Is this a permanent change? No, unfortunately, we had a conflict on Thursday this week, but I did want to make sure I could still go live for you all. I could still get in some Amazon ad questions these days or this week. And so expect it to be Thursday of next week. All right. And again, I'm going to focus on Amazon ad specific questions here, noticing some catalog questions and other questions. So if I skip over it, that would be why. But with that, again, the sooner that you ask your questions, the better. So sometimes I get like a flood of questions at the end of it. I'm going to be here for an hour, providing my voice holds. All right, let's dig into it. All right. When competitors use black hat strategies, as most of the traffic is searching for relevant keywords, clicking on the competitor's PDP, but not purchasing, this increases its click-through rate. How to tackle it? Okay, so you're talking about. It sounds like you're talking about click fraud here, is what you're asking. Okay, so here's how you know if it's click. Here's how you look at click fraud, and what I will say is that there is a report that Amazon will give for sponsored product ads that like shows the clicks that they weed out or that they reimburse you for. So Amazon's algorithm does do a good job to see like if it's bot scrapers or other things and try and take those out. There are certain times where click fraud will happen. Okay. So what I will say is that if there is click fraud happening, it will be isolated to a specific number of keywords. Now, depending on, black hat tactics and their capabilities, it could be over, like 5 keywords. It might just be on 1 keyword. So if you see like a definite spike in clicks for like, especially the main keywords, and then it's really isolated to that, then I would say that's a very good indication of click fraud. Now, if it's happening across all of your keywords in your account, like every single one, that is a performance trend. That's not click fraud. There's no way someone is going to be able to have the exact same trends on every single one of your keywords in your search terms. So if it's something happening across the entire ad account or that entire advertising for that product line, that's a trend. If it's something that's on a specific keyword, then, or like a specific search, click fraud. All right, how do you know click fraud? You see an incredible increase in your click-through rates. The amount of clicks is going up, and the amount of conversion rate is drastically lower. And again, that's isolated to a specific keyword or a couple keywords. And then everything else is pretty much the same. Conversion rate really on average hasn't changed for the product. On average for the rest of all the other keywords, everything's pretty status quo, and it's a very like isolated incident. So how do you fix this? Well, you can't. Amazon can. What you want to do is you need to open a support ticket. What you do not want to say is, hey, I think there's click fraud, because it is not within Amazon's best interest, and they will never say, hey, we have click fraud on our platform. If you go in and you say there's been click fraud and you need to fix it, they won't pay attention to you. They'll just say there's no click fraud. Go check this report. We don't have click fraud. What you need to do is you need to tell them specifically what you're seeing so they can investigate it and determine if it is click fraud. We've done this a couple times. I'll be honest, most times click fraud is less than people think. Again, if it's something happening across the entire account, it's a performance trend. There are certain times where, like, say a top competitor decreases their pricing. We've had like competitors where they decrease their pricing by like $10. It massively impacted everybody else's conversion rates in the space. So just pay attention to trends. All right, back to support ticket. Here's what you want to do. You want to figure out the specific date ranges, the specific campaigns, and the specific data points that you are seeing that lead you to believe it is click fraud. And then you want to give that to the person in the support ticket. So I would open a support ticket, say like, I've noticed some irregularities in my account. There's this specific campaign. I noticed on these specific dates that we had X amount of this, XYZ increase. click-through rates increase to this. I'm not really sure. Can you all investigate it? Something along that wording. So basically you're telling them this is where, what, and when I need you to go investigate and go take a look. Then they will do that. And if there is click fraud, you should be reimbursed for it. My question, if we're running a keyword in an exact match campaign, but it's underperforming, would it be advisable to test the same keyword in a phrase or a broad match type instead? Yes, we do that all the time. I would say I would prefer testing it in phrase match versus broad match, because phrase match is going to have a little bit more specific targeting of the search term that instead of exact match. So I would test it and then just see. All right. Additionally, would you recommend negating this keyword in exact match campaign to avoid overlap? No. So you never want to negate an exact match. You never add negatives, because essentially you're just pausing the keyword. So what will end up happening is if you add a negative to an exact match, it will basically block all search terms that could potentially trigger through that keyword. And so what it's going to look like to you on your end, because the keyword is still going to be active, everything else is going to be active, and you're going to be like, why am I getting no impressions? You're getting no impressions because you added a negative. And so it just creates confusing optimization challenges, and it can be hard to figure out what happened, which could lead to some incorrect conclusions. So never, ever add negatives to exact match. If you need to get rid of it, then you pause it. You don't negate it. All right, how many days impressions clicks without orders do you give new keywords before they're decreasing spend or pausing them? Good question, Daniel. So it is dependent on a couple of things. One is just the amount of clicks that you need on average to have statistical significance for that product. An example here would be at a 10% conversion rate, I need 10 clicks on average. So 10 clicks, pretty statistically significant. 10 to 15 clicks, relatively certain, right? Because I'm giving it that variable, and maybe it's slightly below our average conversion rate. If I hit say 12, 15, I'm like, well, I don't think this is going to convert, and get rid of it. This becomes insanely difficult when you have very low conversion rates. So I know a lot of people talk about average conversion rates on Amazon, like average is about 10%. 10% is very low conversion rates for supplements. And 10% is very high for things like clothing or some decor items, where conversion rates can be between 2 and 5% sometimes in clothing. It's very, very low. At a 2% conversion rate, I need 50 clicks on average to generate an order. If I need 50 clicks and my cost per click is, say, I'll just make it round numbers so I can do the math easy in my head. $1, that takes me 50. That means I have to spend $50 to determine if that's going to convert. So I would say there's two ways. In an ideal world, we're looking only at statistically significant data, and we can say, okay, I need 50 clicks to be statistically certain. Probably, 52, 55 or something, just to give it some wiggle room. Again, with that being said, the reason why that's so difficult is because you end up with a scenario where it's like death by 1,000 cuts. You're like, I need 50 clicks on average. I got 10 clicks here, and I got 5 clicks here, and I got what am I doing? And so this case, what can be helpful is you might want to, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can have sort of a sliding scale where sort of your algorithm will determine, for every single click, we get more data. So you can sort of forecast out what an ACoS target or something would look like, and then maybe cut it off before you overspend on that target. That would be a little bit more aggressive in terms of your optimizations. And so the other thing that we take into account here is just what is the overall performance of that particular product. This is getting really deep in the weeds in terms of bid optimizations. I'm actually working on a guide right now. This guide is taking me longer than I think, because there's a lot of if-then scenarios in this case, and this is one of them. So what we found is that you really want to take into account the overall performance of the account and what you can sustain. So an example of this would be a product with very low conversion rates where the account's very healthy. Now, very healthy is going to be more from a total ACoS perspective than an ACoS perspective. But I'm going to say, okay, so my account's really healthy. I can sustain all of these clicks right now on all of these keywords. I can sustain all of this task because that's essentially what it is. It's testing budgets. I can sustain all this testing budget because overall account performance is really healthy. If you have an account where it's not healthy and you have really high total ACoS and the objectives are to like bring it down, and the reason why it's unhealthy is more due to ad spend and like lack of market share, then I want to severely I want to be very restrictive with the tests that I'm running. And so in these cases, what you can do is you can kind of work backwards from the things that you have most statistical significance on, meaning like, say I have a keyword with 25 clicks, like I'm much closer to figuring out if that works versus a keyword that only has like 1 click on it, right? So you can kind of work backwards there. Yeah, questions on, so I'll be honest with you, with the tariffs and everything else that sellers are facing right now, I will say there is a potential bumpy road ahead. Let's be honest, any changes, especially because that's going to impact the bottom line. And that is something that's been really suffering lately in the seller community with all the additional fees and stuff. That being said, we all went through rounds of uncertainty. I think the most extreme examples of that would be in the initial stages of COVID, when nobody knew what was really going on and all of like receiving and everything for Amazon was just completely shut down. Like there were sellers who weren't able to get products in, and Amazon just like, you were out of stock and you were completely out of luck because they were prioritizing certain items, right? That was rough. That was hard. That came down very hard on sellers, but a lot of you pulled through. And so I would say, as long as you are like, control the things you can and accept the things that you can't. What will happen in times like this is the sellers who can rise to the occasion and navigate the choppy waters will be the ones left standing at the end of the day, and they will reap the reward. So there is always, in any difficult situation, there is always a way out, and there is always a way to navigate it, and there are always, to the victor go the spoils. Amazon is growing as a platform. They are growing. I am very optimistic about the potential for the Amazon market in general. The Amazon market in general and the US potential like economic ramifications in general. I think they're very optimistic, which means there's going to be a lot of upside, a lot of potential. And if you're already up and selling, you're well positioned to capture that. You're going to have to figure, and it's the one thing I love about the Amazon community, I'm trying to be a part of it with this show, is we are very generous with information. So it's a stick tight to your communities, find good sources of information, and navigate it the best you can, and know that if you are willing to do that, you will come out on the other side much stronger. There will be brands who will not be able to weather this. I don't want to sugarcoat that. It will require probably changing up product lines. So one thing I will say, as far as like your selling, yes, you have your products that you have put blood, sweat, and tears into. Your brand is your brand. You can always change products. You can always change markets. You can always change categories. You can always, like, if you are willing to expand your options and open up yourself to sometimes very painful and very hard possibilities, you will be able to weather it. It will be the brands who refuse to look at the reality of the situation, who refuse to make the hard decisions, who refuse to change because this is the way that it's always been done and I'm afraid to take the next step. Those are the brands who will not make it. But the ones who are willing to do the hard work You'll make it. And like I said, to the victor go the spoils. All right. Question. Can Helium 10 sell this note or the other tool? So there's got other tools, compare weekly, monthly, or quarterly PPC, or getting sales for products in a table format, or Excel the only option. Yeah, so there's a ton of tools out there. So we don't use Atomic, and I'm not sure about the other ones. We have, like, the tool that we use is called KPOC. That one allows you to see, like, I think it sounds like you're seeing like the ratio of ads to organic is what you're looking at. So yeah, there's a ton of tools that can pull that for you. I would just take a look at what you're already using so you don't have to add too much tool cost. And then just identify, is there that option in the tool? Because there's lots of tools that have that. All right, for winter clothing branding, a modest 1 million in annual sales, which affordable software would you recommend to access PPC performance data behind the 60-day Seller Central provided? Any ads platform should have the ability to pull this. I'd say I know the tool that we use, which I would highly recommend. It's not like I wouldn't call it a budget option. The tool we use is KPOC, KAPOQ. Fantastic solution. They do have a performance-based, meaning like the amount of, I don't know. I haven't talked to them in a little while. We haven't had a cost discussion in a while. They do go off the size of the count. So I know in some tools, depending on that, I would recommend at least getting in touch with them and talking. But if you're just looking for PPC software to access it, depends how many products. I know Scale Insights is one that a lot of people like. I think their costs are based more on the number of products. So if there's not a big product line, that might be a good idea. Cost effective. I think Ad Badger is pretty cost effective. You might look into them as well. All right. So question, in close match auto, if the bid is higher than performance CPC but lower than suggested bid, then cost is higher than desired, would you recommend increase the bid to get higher positions? Nope. If it's above where you want it, you don't want to pay more for every single click. Increasing your bids will allow Amazon to charge you more for every single click. Now, that could help with your positions. If you're getting sales from it, I don't think I would increase it because it's an auto campaign. I'm not really a huge fan of scaling with autos. If you're trying to look to scale, I would focus more on manuals than autos. I would optimize autos for profitability. When doing a sponsored product's manual product targeting for an item has multiple variations, do you choose the parent ASIN or the individual child ASINs? So advertising, it is based off of the SKU. You can't put a parent ASIN in, and you can't even put a child ASIN in. You actually have to put all the SKUs. So in that case, we would look at the SKUs. Now, if you're asking which products you would put in there, if you're doing manual product targeting, I would, depends on the campaign goals, honestly. If you have a follow-up that you want to ask on, like, if you have a specific, like, if you have a brand defensive claim, my answer would be different. If you're going after it for like hyper targeting of a very like a top competitor, I might have a different answer. Like, is there data available for these products to figure out which one's the best performer? Is this a new product? Like, there's different ways I would answer that question depending on those scenarios. So if you can give a little context there, that would be helpful. All right, in our search term reports, I notice keywords that only get 1 or 2 clicks. What would you recommend to do with in this case? Good question. I would say you want to zoom out over a longer time frame. The other one that you can do is called a Ngram analysis. So again, this is the hardest, where there's like low or no statistically significant data. So you have to pay to get that data, but then like you're still unsure if it's going to work or not. So that can be really, really tricky. You want to do something called an Graham analysis. I'm going to show you a video podcast I did with Ad Badger, which was really helpful. And we talked about this, basically looking at, sorry, I can't type and talk at the same time. This was looking at, it would look at, to sort of aggregate that information. It will basically say, like, how often do these individual root words show up? And then when they do show up, how many times do they show up? And is there a way where we can get insights from this? Again, it also is dependent on the overall performance of the account. So let's say your account was, like, if the total A cost was good, I wouldn't worry about it as much. If you really need to cut down ad spend, then in those cases, you would want to look it up. Anyway, sorry, I'm not finding the video really quick. So what I would do is I would look up N-gram. So it's a letter N-gram analysis Ad Badger, and that video should come up. All right, should we optimize and remove these little click keywords? There's another approach to make the campaigns more efficient. So you will never, I just want to be clear with this. You will never have every single keyword in your account converting. Never. And even if you did have every single keyword converting, not every search term is converting. And if you are restrictive so much in your account that you immediately cut off anything that is not converting to an order immediately, you will negatively impact your market share. You will. So I just want to preface that. So I would just say, like, it depends on it depends on where the account is performance-wise. If you really need to be restrictive of budgets, you're going to be more aggressive with this. If you have wiggle room in the budget, meaning your total A cost is good, then you can be less restrictive. All right, so I have an account where the client has launched 4 new products, skincare. All of them had reviews under 50, pricing higher than competition, saying they are premium products. Yes. All right, let's see. Client has done giveaways on certain keywords, which got ranked, but aren't seeing any conversions coming. Now, from an ads perspective, I've targeted all those keywords, but getting very high CPCs as of $10. Yes. The beauty care is crazy competitive. Alongside of target ASINs category, all of them are giving too high CPCs, and I'm trying low bid auto campaigns. They're still struggling to get traction. Also, I have targeted search brand campaigns with low bids, see if we get low CPCs. Unfortunately, no traction so far. We'll keep the odds of possible things to try and get more traction. This is more of a communications issue with the client than it is. This is rough. So what's happening is, most likely, I'm judging this based off of conversions. The brand is saying we are a premium product, and the market is saying, no, you're not. I don't see any value in spending more for your product versus your competitors. That's what's happening. On the other side of that, you're struggling with the high cost per clicks, and we can talk about sorry, I have allergies on top of everything today. Okay, so let's tackle the client communication and the conversion rate and how to approach that first, and then let's talk about navigating high cost per clicks. Okay, so for the conversations on the low conversion rate and a client saying I have a premium product and the market saying I don't believe you, data is going to be your best friend here. So you do have to be brand registered to figure this out, but you want to look at the search query performance report. You want to look at brand metrics inside of the ad console. What is the product's conversion rate versus the market? Do you stack up? Another great thing to do is going to be looking at the search query performance reports and looking at, they have the average, they will show you the average price point of the products that people are clicking on and people that are converting on those searches. So if you can find those main keywords in your search query performance reports, you can navigate it that way. Now, what you want to do is basically like do data gathering. You can also use the Product Opportunity Explorer is a fantastic way. That will also look at like average price points. Oh, Product Opportunity Explorer will tell you really fascinating insights into the consumer behavior in a specific niche and for a search market. So you can actually look at what are the clients like. It will actually like Amazon. I don't know if you know this. Inside a Product Opportunity Explorer, you can get insights into the most common positive and negative review sentiments. So, for example, do they like the high price point? Do they care about low price? If you launch a quote premium product, even if it is a premium product, even if it's legit, you've done a lot of efforts in the listing and you've done, like just all the legwork. If that particular category does not care about the premium option, you won't do well. So Product Opportunity Explorer can be a really good way to figure out like what do shoppers really care about when it comes to like this particular category in space. So I would look at that. So you're doing data finding and you're basically saying, hey, client, these are the things that I found in terms of this. PickFu is another really great option. We're editing it right now. It will come out on our YouTube channel. I finally filmed the thing, so goal is next week on how to use PickFu to identify where there's misalignment between what the market wants and your product, and you actually want to do this on several different levels. So we run like a click test, a main image test, a search image test, and a product listing comparison test, and all of those will give you a really good idea of like why a shopper is not purchasing your product and also why they're purchasing the competitors, so you can make moves to that. So basically it's a fact finding. It's saying, hey, this is why we're struggling, heads up. By the way, also market competition, also high cost per clicks. These are the things that these are the struggles that we're having. Then the second thing is game planning. So this gets into the high cost per clicks and what to do about it. All right. You need to be able to figure out. So there's two ways that you can offset high A costs, which it sounds like that's what you're dealing with. The first one is going to be finding low cost per clicks, which sounds like that's what you're trying to do and haven't been able to do it. But the second one is to figure out where you have high conversion rates. Now, you're struggling with conversion rates. Oh, goodness. You're struggling with conversion rates, so you may or may not be able to find something. So basically, you're trying to find the intersection between where can I get lower cost per clicks and where can I get conversion rates. I will tell you right now, most times in the highly competitive spaces like this, the bonus is that often beauty products have the repeat purchase thing. So what you're looking to do is you want to look at overall customer lifetime value. If you focus in on very short-term low costs, you're going to significantly stifle the market share. So what you want to do in high cost per click spaces is you run what we call frequent micro tests. So what happens is when you find like 20 keywords and they all have $10 a click and you have to have at least 10 clicks to be able to identify if it converts, that's $100 for every single one of those. 10 times 10 is 1,000. Like that's really significant and can be too high for cost. I don't know what the cost is, but it's too high. So what you want to do is instead of spending all of that money at once, you want to spend it very quickly in increments. So I would test only just a handful of keywords. I would test them really aggressively, figure out if they work or not. If anything converts at all in these low conversion spaces, you baby the heck out of that. Any conversion is a good conversion when you're getting nothing. Doesn't mean that your A cost is going to be great, but you're like basically figuring out where in the market does this product even fit and convert. And then when you figure that out, you double down on that, and then you see where you can optimize from there. It was a very long-winded question, but hopefully that was helpful. All right. In our auto campaign, we're getting clicks from competitor ASINs in the search terms, but they aren't converting into sales. Could you suggest we negate those ASINs? Or if there's other strategies we could apply to improve the conversion rates? Yeah. So if you're not getting conversions on it, negate it. There's no reason to pay for clicks if they're not working. Again, make sure you have enough clicks to make that determination. And then anything to improve the conversion rates, you want to look at any insights that will help you know which competitors are doing well and then compare yourself against them. And PickFu is a fantastic way to compare yourself to the market. So I would look at them. And again, I'm going to be putting out a YouTube video very soon. What's the best way to rank at the first page for a high search volume, mild relevance keyword? Okay, I'm going to, there's one way to rank on keywords. That doesn't mean it's going to be profitable. So most times when I give this answer, you're probably not going to like it. You need to get a heck ton of sales from shoppers who are searching that keyword. You may or may not be able to do that. So it comes down more to product alignment than it does like, is there something right or wrong I'm doing in the ads? Like if you wanted to know a ranking strategy, exact match keyword, single campaign, single ad group, one best-selling variation of the product, put that in that campaign, go aggressive on the bids so you can go top of search, make sure your budget doesn't get restricted. That's the strategy. Now, anyone who's run ads for any length of time is going to hear me say that and be like, that's expensive and that ACoS is going to be crazy. And I'll say you're correct. If the only goal is to rank, that's how you do it. And it is possible to have that strategy being run in an account, even at a high unprofitable ACoS, and the overall account to be profitable, as long as you have enough profit-focused campaigns and strategies to offset what you're doing with that one campaign. So there is ways to have your cake and eat it too, but it's not going to be on the individual performance. So that's how you build it. Now, the question then becomes is there a way to do that strategically where I don't have to completely just lose money hand over fist? The answer is yes and maybe. So how you would do that, there's a couple ways. One of them is you might restrict the overall budget for that campaign. So an example would be if I had a keyword where I've done the research and, to rank on that, I need about, 15 sales a day or so, then I would say, okay, what budget do I need to have at, 15 sales a day to be able to run this campaign? I could do the math on that. And then I could just say all right, my budget for this particular campaign is going to be X amount of budget. That is useful. Now, that's not going to fix the ACoS for that campaign. I'm telling you right now, the only way to fix ACoS is going to be paying less per click. Either you do something to the product that makes it convert better, lower the price, do better, add coupons, make sure that the listing clearly shows all of the benefits, make sure it appeals to the market. All of those things will increase the conversion rate, but that's not ads. It's not something you do in the ad strategy. The other thing that you can do is for higher conversion rate in advertising, you could pick better keywords. So really what I find is that if the question is how do I rank, push sales. How do you do that? You go aggressive. If the question is how do I rank profitably, then what I have found is it's more about picking the right keywords. Less about there are very technical, tactical, and advanced strategies you can use. Like I've talked about, restricting the budgets and things. That will not make up for, at least on that one campaign. Again, you can have a profitable account and an unprofitable campaign. That's entirely possible if you know how to do it. But that's not going to fix the profitability of that one specific campaign. If that made sense. Hopefully that made sense. All right. So it's saying thank you. All right, awesome. So good. Sounds like my long-winded answer was helpful. All right, Elizabeth, quick question. We have multiple SKUs in one campaign and are targeting a single keyword, which would win the spot. If we have multiple SKUs with multiple keywords, what would the scenario be? Now, assuming these SKUs are all variations. Please share for insights. Both scenarios. Good question. So, only one of those variations is going to be eligible to show on a specific search page. Now, here's the nuances: is you can get multiple ad types. So an example of this would be like there's a headline ad, there's a video ad, there's, you know, your search grid, and there's also like widgets. So we have seen that you can have like one search grid, like top of search placement, and you can get a placement and a widget. That does happen too, but you're not going to have like two of the variations show up side by side in the advertising. That doesn't happen. And so you only get one of the variations to show. Which variation gets shown is really dependent on the algorithm. Now, there is this thought that the Amazon ad algorithm will always show the best choice of the product because the algorithm knows best. And we assume if someone types in, you know, blue running sneakers, that it's going to show our blue product on that search page. That's not true, actually. What we found is that a lot of times it'll focus in on the best sellers, but you'll see sometimes where like one product's being, one of the variations is being advertised. You're like, why does it keep showing this? Because I have like hundreds of clicks and no orders for this. For whatever reason, Amazon's chosen to do that. So what we found is the best way to approach these scenarios with variations is to mostly focus in on our best sellers or the ones that we know convert the best. And then if we have any variation specific keywords, so an example of this would be like blue running shoes I talked about, we build a separate campaign with only the blue keywords and only the blue running shoes. Same example would be, so here's one like for bedding and stuff. Like we advertise for products with beddings and like sheets, right? One would think, you know, so oftentimes you have the twin and the queen size and the king size or whatever. One would think like the main images are exactly the same. So if I'm advertising the queen size or the king size, like it shouldn't matter. Like it should have the same conversion rate. But actually what we found is that if you are intentional and you manually build out campaigns with those specific relevant variations in them, even if it's like the main image is exactly the same, it's just like a size difference or something, it does change the conversion rate. You do get better conversions if you have that. So I would say which one it shows, it's dependent. If you give Amazon the options, they'll use them. But you only can get one ad spot. So what we found is that if you can be very specific with the products that you are advertising in that campaign, you make sure you're forcing Amazon to put the best foot forward. So hopefully that was helpful. Cool. Looks like we have a couple minutes left, although I was able to power. Sometimes I'm not able to, but looks like we powered through said questions. So I'm going to wait a couple more minutes. If we don't have any more questions roll in, I think I'll end the stream, seeing as my voice is kind of holding up, not exactly. But yeah, so I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone who is willing to show up on a Friday. I know it's super late a lot of y'all's time, so I am always super grateful for that. Again, format of this is feel free to drop Amazon ad questions. If there's any further ones, I'll make sure to pick those up. And if you don't think of anything this week or this time, again, you can always join us next week. I would say same time, same place, but we'll have it back on our regular Thursdays. So Thursdays, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every single Thursday, show up with your Amazon ad questions and I will give you the best answers. And again, it comes through years of experience with us running Amazon ads for, gosh, every single product under the sun. We've done supplements, which are crazy. Beauty category, skincare, we're talking about that, like high price premium options. Okay, sponsor brand bulk campaign optimization. Someone was asking about that. Yeah, so we do have bulk optimizations. be curious to know what you mean by optimizations. Like, you talking bid optimizations, budgets? Like, what are you looking at for that? But yeah, so everything from baby clothing has its own. Let's see, home goods, scientific equipment. That was an interesting one. High price scientific equipment. That's an interesting one. Like, right? So you have best practices, and then you have the very specific category issues. And I don't want to say issues, more like challenges. So we span the gamut between all of that. And so, all right. Also saying thank you for taking time to answer your questions. You did an amazing job. Appreciate it. Appreciate you as well. So with that, looks like we will wrap it up here. So again, always appreciate it. I will see you guys next week. Bring your Amazon ad questions and I will bring the answers. And that wraps up this episode of the Ask Junglr Amazon Advertising Podcast. I hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your Amazon PPC journey. Remember, if you have a burning Amazon ad question that you'd like answers to, head over to junglr.com/live to join our next live Q&A session. Until next time, keep optimizing those ads and stay hungry.